Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to a list of popular books that I'm probably not gonna read. I know I've done these videos in the past, but books are always cropping up, so I thought I would give an updated list of books that I've missed. So the first book on this list that I'm probably never gonna read is The Magician by Raymond E. Feist. I know this has a lot of fans behind it. I know Raymond Feist has put out new books lately, but I'm honestly just not interested. Whenever I see his books in the bookstore, I'm like, oh, maybe I could give it a try, but then I get distracted by everything else and it's not really a priority, so I'm not putting it off because I think it's going to be a bad read. I just put it off because it's probably going to be a slower read and I just don't have time to commit to that right now. Maybe in the future, like the far future, I might get into it given that people I trust have read it and enjoyed it, but it's also a time thing. I don't like old fantasy, and I feel like The Magician is a fairly old fantasy, but this author has written new stuff, so I probably won't read him anytime soon, so that's why The Magician is on here. Next is a very newly released book, and in the past I've had a bit of up and down with this author, and it is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, and this is a book that is dark academia but also a magical school, which sound amazing and up my alley, but unfortunately I've just heard so much about this and how it's info dumpy, and even if I listen to this on audiobook, I don't know if I could do it. I just really don't think I could do it. And I have in the past enjoyed Uprooted, have disliked Spinning Silver. So her books have been like up and down a little bit for me. Well, up and down a lot for me. And I just don't think I would love A Deadly Education, even though it sounds like I would. I just don't think it's going to be my cup of tea. Next is another one that's doing the rounds, and it's From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I think that's the right title. I know a few people lately have adored this book, and it has fantasy and supernatural in it. So I don't want to talk about what kind of supernatural creature. I've seen people in the past discuss what kind, and I've seen people in the past not discuss what kind deliberately because they think it will be a spoiler, so I'm just going to stick clear of that entire territory. But I know that it's paranormal romance with fantasy, and I don't really like romance dominating a story, especially in a fantasy space. I prefer the characterization to dominate a story and all of the tension to come from outward factors or internally with decision making, rather than the love dynamic making all of the choices or driving the story, I guess. And I don't know if that necessarily informs all of the plot in From Blood and Ash, but it is heavy enough in that series to make me go, I probably wouldn't like it, because I've heard it compared to Sarah J. Maas, and while I don't really love Sarah J. Maas, it means I probably won't love From Blood and Ash either. At one point I did want to read Jennifer L. Armentrout. I think it was her White Hot Kiss series, but I ended up unhauling those ages ago because I thought, oh, I got these on a whim, probably not going to read them. I really just don't think they're my style, but that's nothing on the book. Again, I haven't read it. It's probably great if you like that kind of thing, but personally, I don't think it's for me. After that are two quite popular series. I don't think I've mentioned them before. Shatter Me is the first one, and this is a very, very popular young adult dystopia. I read a ton of these when I was first breaking into YA, and I just think I missed the boat completely. And if I went back now, I'd probably be really annoyed at things, especially miscommunication. So that's why I'm not going to be doing that series. I know it's about a girl who, whenever she touches people, they die, and then one day she touches this guy and he doesn't die. And it goes from that point on. I don't need to know any more than that. It doesn't really sound like my jam. The next author is Rainbow Rowell, and she's a very popular author as well. She tends to write young adult romance or new adult romance. She's written Fangirl, which I unhauled. She's written Eleanor and Park, which I also unhauled. Haven't read either of those. And I know she's done Carry On as well, which is like her version of almost Harry Potter fan fiction. So it does have a fantasy aspect to it. It does have a magical school to it, but I just don't really think that I'm interested in her. If I had like 4 or 5 years to read her other two books and I never touched them, I don't think I'm going to read Carry On either. So I think that's just the way it is. Rainbow Rowell is not the author for me. Another one that might be more of a surprise is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and I have really loved Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I adored that book. I gave it 5 stars. I did a whole vlog for it. I was dedicated. When it comes to her Shadow and Bone series, I didn't love those as much. I read the first book, I left the other two. I'm excited for the Netflix adaptation, but that's pretty much where it ends. So I don't think I'm gonna pick up King of Scars at all. Unless I can read like a spoiler summary really quickly. I've heard that King of Scars wasn't amazing. A lot of people didn't love it as much as I thought they would. There was a lot less hype for it basically compared to the other stuff that I've seen. So I love the cover, I love how gold it looks, it's very pretty, but I just don't think that I would be reading that either, considering I'm not up to date on the trilogy that predates it. I would prefer her adult work, her different work, her dark academia work instead with Ninth House. The next one is another Netflix adaptation, and I tend to watch contemporary adaptations, but I don't read their books. So I loved the movie for Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, didn't read that book. I similarly loved the adaptation for To All the Boys I've Loved Before, the first movie. I haven't seen any more than that, and I adored that movie. I've watched it more than once, but I would not go back and read the other Jenny Han books. I wouldn't read that trilogy. I think Lara Jean's voice would be very annoying. I just don't like young adult romance. If I like romance, it's got to be non-toxic, it's got to have no miscommunication in it, and it's got to have wonderful friendships. So I don't think those are things that are all present in the Lara Jean books. Her family seem amazing. She just seems very young, and I have definitely outgrown that. The next one is A Court of Silver Flames, and that is the newest Sarah J Maas book. I've seen that cover popping up. It looks cool. I'm very happy for people who were anticipating it, but it is not even on my radar for books that I'd considered reading because I just don't like Sarah J Maas's writing. I don't like her world building, and I don't like her characters. So it's just a personal preference. That one is going to be sidelined by me, but I am very envious of all of the hype around it. I'm envious of all of the people talking about it. I just love when a book comes out and it brings everybody together in discussion, and that's what the book is doing, but I know the book is not for me. So don't want to read it, but like what it's doing. The next one is The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. This is the third book to the Poppy War trilogy, and I thought I was going to reread the first book. It really depends on the day. I go back and forth saying, I'm going to reread it. I'm not going to touch it again. It really depends on what mood you get me in and what time of day and what date even, because I keep flip-flopping on this decision and I can't make one. The Poppy War is a book that started out as a magical school book and then it went into a book about war. Not a spoiler, it's called The Poppy War. I should have seen it coming, but alas, I'm not going to continue reading this series. I'm just going to say it right now. If I even try to reread The Poppy War, I'm just going to stop at The Poppy War, because now that I know what to expect, I might like it for what it is, but not like it enough to continue. So I know either way, oh, there's something in my eye. So I know either way that it's not going to be a book that I give 5 stars is what I'm saying. So I don't plan on reading it and then continuing on to The Burning God, especially when I've heard people review The Burning God and say that it's not as amazing as they wanted it to be, and it was a bit of a letdown, and it was a bit of a rushed ending. Any ending that does not live up to the books preceding it are not worth my time, so I'm not going to pick up The Burning God. Alright, I've got 4 more. The next one is Selection, or The Selection by Kira Cass, I think. I know this is a dystopian mixture of a dystopian world and The Bachelorette. I hate The Bachelorette. I'm one of those people that just can't stand it, so I'm not going to ever read this series either. I just don't care. So I don't think I would like it. It would be a waste of my time to pick it up because I wouldn't give it a good review, and I don't hate read books, so there wouldn't be a reason for me to even touch it really. After that is Serpent and Dove, which is again another fantasy book, but it's a fantasy book romance, except it's a young adult to new adult, kind of like the Jennifer L. Armentrout book. It's a book that centers around, I think, a demon and a demon hunter, and the demon hunter finds out she's part demon, maybe, and she's also in an arranged marriage to this guy. So it's set in a fantasy world, but again, it centers the romance, and that's not really my jam. So because I know that those two things aren't really for me, then I wouldn't pick it up because I wouldn't enjoy it. So moving right along. And now my last 2 are 2 science fiction books. So the first one is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. And I read the first book and quite enjoyed it. I gave it a 4. I'd probably give it a 3 now, just based on what I know I feel now about the writing. But when I was reading it, I knew that I was taking a long time. And now looking back, I'm like, that's because it was slow. But I did get enjoyment from it. So it was good for what it was. I probably wouldn't go back. There was a lot of references and a lot of the writing felt a little bit dry to me. I don't see the reason to go into reading the sequel, especially when that book in the beginning, it just sectioned everything off the way it needed to be. And so I don't see any reason for me personally to continue when I'm just happy with how everything concluded. I think I can let Sleeping Dogs lie and just leave that series alone. And then lastly, the last book on this list is probably also a surprise. It is The Martian by Andy Weir. I have no plans to read any of Andy Weir, to be honest, even though he's a science fiction author. Usually that would be my jam. I've heard subpar stuff about all of his work except The Martian, and I watched The Martian as a film. loved it. If I read it as a book, I already know what's going to happen. I know I did the book Cardinal Sin, the bookworm Cardinal Sin. I watched the film before I read the book, but it's just happened that way. So I don't think I'm going to read the book ever. If I do, it'll be by audiobook, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So there concludes my list. Those are all the books that I probably won't read. Let me know if you have any that you probably won't read. They're probably going to be some of my popular favorites. I hope they're not, but everyone has their own subjective reading taste, so I'm not going to hold it against you. So come chat to me down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll chat to you in my next one. Bye.